on scenarios and trends in relation to innovation in China toward 2030. And of course, as Tomas says, it's not possible to predict the future. Instead, we have to think in a structured way about the future. And we have done that and are still doing that along four dimensions that we think impact innovation in China going forward. One is the policy, the top-down aspect. The second one has to do with the challenges and needs of society, whether it is climate change or an aging population. The third is the context. China does not innovate in isolation, it's part of the global context, so you also need to understand the global trends. And the fourth part is capabilities perspective, because innovation in the future will build upon current capabilities that are redeveloped and recombined in new ways. This morning there were two excellent presentations on looking at the policy perspective. Nondas has mentioned some things from the context and needs of the future. So I will use my 13, 12 minutes here to go a little deeper into the capability perspective, which I think is underexplored and not so often mentioned in these types of seminars. So the way we have studied this is through a data mining study of Chinese patents, trademarks, and academic articles, and also through an interview study. I will not give you a lot of numbers here. Those will be published through and released through the Dragon's Heart channels, but rather highlight a few of the insights in this study. So some of the people that we have interviewed, they feel that China's capabilities are developing and merging in a way that makes China very well positioned to take advantage of a global trend that is very important that is going on right now. And that is the trend that less and less of the value of a product across industries is the physical product. And more is based on the information when the product interacts with its user and its surrounding. So so hardware is being brought into the IT or information domain, and this leads to new logics and business models that I will explain why China is very well positioned to take advantage of. And a lot of the current buzzwords come from this trend. So Internet of Things, Factory 4.0, connected vehicles, and moving forward also autonomous vehicles, smart cities, smart homes, connected health, and so on. These are all areas that China has the chance to dominate in 2030, when there will be more than 1 trillion sensors embedded in infrastructure, in products, even in our clothes perhaps, and we will have a very different world in some ways because of that. And so the reason that China is well positioned to take advantage of this trend is that China has two core capabilities, one within manufacturing and the other one within internet-based or business model-driven innovation, and that these two ecosystems are now merging. So let's first talk about the manufacturing side. Unfortunately, this is a short movie that did not transfer to this computer, but so basically I will explain it to you. So so we have visualized patenting, innovation patenting in China in different cities from 1985 until now, and what happens is that in the early 2000s, the big cities, these are the cities in China that applied for or did patenting back in 85, but what happens is that in the early 2000s, Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen grew very, very rapidly, and so innovation became more centralized, or at least R&D. But in the last years, since 2009, 2010, this trend has changed. So innovation is moving more to the second and third tier cities, but not all over China, but mainly around the Pearl River Delta and in the Yangtze River Delta. So the places that used to be manufacturing hubs are now climbing the value chain, and a lot of the companies that used to be further down the value chain are now working more with innovation and building their brands. So China was very successful in the 80s in embedding themselves into the global value chains, absorbing knowledge on how to manufacture almost anything. And in the 90s, a pirating cluster of manufacturers emerged in Shanghai, the Shanghai cluster of manufacturers. They were very good at breaking down products into their constituent parts and finding ways to manufacture all these different components more efficiently and more cheaply. So, and because of their complete disregard of intellectual property rights, they are usually seen as copycats. But actually there was a lot of innovation going on there, both in how they redesigned manufacturing processes and also in how they were able to find market niches. For example, like in this case, this is not an iPhone, this is an iPhone copy, but with a better camera, better battery, and so on. So this Shanghai phase of China's development might be a temporary phase, but the lessons learned and the knowledge acquired during that phase is not temporary. And that knowledge is now being used to make products that are perhaps the best in the world and to put things together in a new but more efficient way. So, and this is the reason why we see entrepreneurs from all over the world now going to Shenzhen in central China, for example, to HAX Accelerator, as on the image here, because they can access components more cheaply than they can elsewhere. In HAX Accelerator, they have a 90-day program where they can go from prototype to launching their product. So very, very rapid development for these companies, getting access also to the knowledge about the supply chains and so on. And so this manufacturing ecosystem is infused with the creativity of the makers movement that I think it was Professor Liu that, or maybe it was who mentioned in one of the lectures this morning, that the makers movement is also being promoted by the government. So, so on the manufacturing side, interesting things are happening, becoming not only strong at the manufacturing, but also becoming more creative and merging and getting more entrepreneurial talent from all over the world. On the IT and also launching products on Kickstarter, like these ones that you can see, many of them have been funded, several 100% more than they pledged. And you have anything from transferring physical movements into virtual worlds to wind and air umbrella and so on. So more creative products coming out of this ecosystem. But if we turn to the internet side and the business model innovation side, the Chinese companies also followed a similar path, started to copy ideas from Silicon Valley. But more recently, if you compare Chinese companies like, or platforms like Sina or WeChat, Meituan, Ctrip, they're often, and then you compare them to their American or non-Chinese counterparts, so Twitter and WhatsApp and Groupon and TripAdvisor and so on. They are not only more successful in China, which of course have different reasons, but they are more successful in China than their non-Chinese counterparts are in their respective home markets. They are simply better at making pay for what they do. And perhaps not so strange, because some of these companies have literally thousands of competitors, and these are the last people standing, and that is why just in the last, about the last month, both New York Times and The Economist reported that the future of social and of internet is in China, and Facebook and other Silicon Valley actors are looking at what's happening here and are inspired by that and trying to achieve the same. So, and when you talk about, for example, WeChat, how is WeChat different? Why is it better? People say it has this feature and that feature and so on. But what really makes WeChat, for example, different is that they are really good at understanding consumers and offering things that they are prepared to pay for, which you have not really seen with Twitter and so on. And this this builds on a methodology that Western companies or European companies can also learn from, which is this very iterative process, always testing everything on users at a large scale, learning from that feedback and integrating it into the product. So, and it's not only these big companies that we've all heard of. We identified around 20,000 IT startups in China that have received venture capital funding in the last couple of years. And so this word cloud shows the areas that they are active in, these 20,000 Chinese startups. So you see that e-commerce is very big, enterprise services as well, and online to offline, but also things like healthcare and food and beverage and so on. So a lot of interesting projects going on, a lot of interesting startups that are active in different spaces in China. And there is definitely also space for European companies to be part of this, become part of these ecosystems. So when I looked for an air purifier quite recently for my apartment, I saw the effect of these two ecosystems, the manufacturing ecosystem and the internet ecosystem, merging. There's a British medical doctor here in Beijing that for several years has reviewed different air purifiers and combinations of different air purifiers. And earlier this year, he wrote a post saying, "My quest for the perfect air purifier has ended." So he sold all his international brands, which cost 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 renminbi, and instead replaced them with Xiaomi devices, which cost less than 1,000 renminbi. Cynical people wonder how much he got paid from Xiaomi, but I hear the same story also from my friends. And so Xiaomi is, the reason this is happening, and the reason it is interesting in this context, is that Xiaomi is part of a growing phenomenon among Chinese companies that is about zero or almost zero hardware. Because for them, all these gadgets are just part of a much bigger ecosystem of connected devices. So they're not actually trying to make money or much money from the hardware. Instead, they're trying to make it through the ecosystem in a different way. Xiaomi is often mentioned in discussions about innovation in China, but the really interesting part of what they're doing is business model innovation rather than product innovation. And that is also, I think, the reason why innovation in China is often overlooked, because the most interesting things that are happening when it comes to business model innovation. So another example of this phenomenon is DJI in Shenzhen, which has more than 50% of the world market of civil drones. So their key success factor, apart from making good drones, which they do, and most recently they made a drone that can actually lift a person, but their key success factor is that they have a platform for app developers that can develop applications for software applications for these hardwares, which mean that the product is much more than the product. So you have applications that you can fly over a farm or a piles of timber to map and give recommendations. So the point here is that in order to beat DJI, you cannot simply make better products. You have to beat their entire ecosystem of developers, which add value to the product. Of course, these models are not unique to China, but the combination of China's strong manufacturing industry, companies that really understand business model innovation, and the fact that there are so many hungry challengers among the Chinese companies. They are not the leading companies in their industries, they are the challengers and they are very, very hungry. So that makes it disruptive in China. The traditional view is that Chinese companies are slowly climbing the value chain from low end to the mid segment to eventually the premium segment where a lot of the European companies are. And in order to get there, they need to build their brands, they need to increase the quality, become more innovative. And this is a process that takes a long, long time. But what the European business leaders that we have interviewed in this study are afraid of is not that this will happen, also in some cases of course, but it is that this will happen, which is that basically the Xiaomi case, that the Chinese companies are not even trying to climb up to the premium premium segment, they are trying to eliminate the premium segment through business model innovation, rewriting the rules of the game. And that is a development that can potentially be much faster. So, and this is not only when it comes to gadgets and electronics. We have examples from anything from construction equipment, companies like Sept, to medical equipment, companies like Mindray. So this is happening in a lot of different areas. So to wrap up this presentation, just a few areas where, in the context of this workshop, where can Europe and European companies learn from China? One thing, not only learn, but so this is a visualization of based on co-patenting. So companies that have patents together with other companies in China. This is back in 1995. There were only 200 companies in China that had patents with other companies. You see the names here, in a lot of isolated islands. If we move to 2005, there were 1,500 companies. This is just the biggest cluster within that network. So many more Chinese companies collaborating with other companies. And if we go to 2015, this is what it looks like, only the biggest component. So the networks are becoming much more dense. And you want to be in these networks because that is how you can succeed in China. So how can we help European companies and other organizations to become part of the innovation networks in China? How do you get a central location in these networks? So that's one thing. Connecting to networks, embedding ourselves into the local ecosystem. Second thing has to do with accelerated innovation. Chinese companies are they are fast, they have speed. And how can we learn from that? Partly because of the environment, of course, so many companies competing fast, but also in how they are organized and organized for speed, for implementing things very rapidly, and for picking up new things from the consumers. And this is actually the third part, this very open and market-driven model of innovation where the whole time these companies are tracking what's going on among the end users and the consumers. And then to look for complementary capabilities. These are just a few both emerging areas and very broad areas where we looked at academic publications, how many publications in Europe, how many publications in China, to see what are the areas that are stronger in one area or another. And this is something that I will not go into because my time is up, but it's also important to look at how we can complement each other. So with that, I say thank you very much. And I hope, and maybe just the last thing from the Tomas mentioned the scenario workshop, and we identified 3 in this workshop in Shanghai. There were 3 key uncertainties, because I painted a very rosy image of innovation in China, but remember that there are still a lot of uncertainties. How will the knowledge flows be? Is it going to be silos or open flows, both between China and the rest of the world and within China? What will be the role of the government? Will it be nourishing of ecosystems or more restrictive and top-down? And what will be the key innovation drivers? Will it be consumer-driven innovation or more challenge-driven?